Cheers, y'all.
That's the sound of a party.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine radio program, podcast, and video extravaganza known internationally as the world-famous Smokin' and Toastin'. And, I love being able to say this, but today, it's like for real. Have we got a show for you today?
I'm so excited about it.
Lino Branch returns our world famous and very favorite bourbon evangelist, whiskey evangelist from Garrison Brothers. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me again.
And you've brought along some guy named Garrison.
Yes, I brought a friend.
I'm the better-looking brother. Of the two.
Good to know. Charlie Garrison, welcome to the show. Let me just stop before we do anything else and thank you for all you do.
Not at all. All I do is drink.
Right?
So I'm happy to be.
Well, but somebody's making the whiskey.
But with a higher purpose, yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No, welcome, Garrison Brothers. Of course, we know quite a bit about Garrison Brothers, but I have a feeling you can tell us even more, and we're excited to learn and ask you all kinds of, just questions about the process and about Texas whiskey and about how it was for you guys going through bars being closed down and all the other things during COVID. So we'll get to a whole bunch of that as soon as we kick into the show in full gear. But I want to say hello to my erstwhile co-host and good friend, Mr. Ian Barry. How you doing, brother?
Good. How you doing today?
I'm feeling good. I got.
It's a good day. I got a show here.
You brought me a cold Kolsch, which is it's so cold that it's sweating on the counter.
Now,
here,
Allstat, that's an Allstat Kolsch, and that's
Yeah.
from right around your neck of the woods.
Yeah,
It is up in Fredericksburg.
Yeah.
Have you seen that brewery?
Oh, it's insane.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Awesome.
I have not seen it. Is it just a thing to behold?
You know how cool it is when you walk in at Disneyland, you see the castle and everything?
totally.
It's like that with beer.
It's a castle. You're
It
driving
is
down the
actually
road,
a
you look
castle.
up and there's a castle there.
That makes it better than Disneyland, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
Better than Disneyland. That should be their slogan. Allstat, better than Disneyland.
It's a castle with beer.
Well, we are excited to be bringing you show number 255. Ian wowed me last week. We were talking about the show, and
That is halfway to 300, by the way.
that it certainly is. And we were talking about the show, and you basically clicked the light bulb on for me that we've been doing this for over 5 years. Yeah,
The more you know.
that was what it sounded like actually in my head when. I honestly can't believe we've been doing this for 5 years or more. So that's what it made me think of and immediately was how much beer, whiskey, tequila, and rum that meant.
We have
that
imbibed,
we had
sir.
consumed. And the answer is a lot. We'll do more today, of course. Charlie and Lina have brought some Garrison Brothers goodies for us to talk about and try. And we'll be tasting some beers. Ian from Portland, Maine. Allagash Brewing Company. We've had some of their beers on the show before. I've actually drank quite a few of their beers when I lived up in the New England area.
It's hard to find a bad beer from Allagash.
Yeah, it really is. And I have a feeling you're going to like today's. It's called Woven in Time. It's a dark ale brewed with millet and smoked maple syrup.
I don't know this one at all.
I don't know about a beer with millet, so that'll be the interesting thing. But
I'm not even sure what millet is, actually.
it's like a grain.
Some kind of grain,
right?
It's a grain,
It's
yeah.
a grain that's sort of. I don't know. When I think of millet, I think of stuff that you eat when you don't have rice and can't afford beans. It's just, or if you're super ultra vegan, I think there's some millet in the
A lot of the vegan foods.
vegan diet. Yeah. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see what it tastes like in a beer, and we will do that. Now, then we will shift our attention to Birmingham, Alabama, for a brewery that I'm hoping this is like the owner's or head brewer's name, because if not, it's kind of it's not the best name. It's TrimTab Brewing Company.
It's what?
TrimTab.
TrimTab.
I know. Yeah, the jokes just start jumping
I'm
out
sure
at
there's
you.
a story.
Yeah, there must be. Or it could be the last name. I don't know the answer. We'll have
Oh,
to
it's
look
one
that up.
word.
Yeah, TrimTab.
Okay.
All one word. TrimTab Brewing Company, though, they have put out something called Satin Steel. It's a double IPA, and I can't wait for you to see the can on this because it's got the logo for Satin Steel looks just like a bad '80s hairband logo. It's
I love it
wonderful.
already.
Yeah, it's just all multicolored and shiny. It's like
We've had a few cans like that are very 80s retro.
yes, it seems to be a trend, and it makes me think of what was the name of Bill and Ted's band, Wild Stallions. That's with a Y, Stallions. Yeah, that will be one of our beers today. And then from Anderson Valley Brewing Company in Boonville, California, we've had some of their beers on before. We will be trying their salted caramel porter. And that's just what it's called, salted caramel porter.
That sounds good. I wonder what's in it.
They didn't go for the fancy name. so I believe it has been aged in bourbon barrels. So so we'll be looking forward to trying all of that. And I want to one of the things I want to get into is as far as collaborating between whiskeys and breweries. Is that something you guys are ever looking to do? Is it something you've done before and I'm just not aware?
It is. We do it all the time. We, a barrel should be used for anything, I believe. I think you should make breakfast with barrels, lunch with barrels.
I love that idea.
So when we're using barrels for our bourbon, I can use them once by law. So when I'm done
Right,
with
because
that
a bourbon barrel can only be used one time.
Yep. So when I'm done, it's got to be used for something. And the beer guys show up all the time.
I bet they do.
Doing really cool stuff. Some hot sauce companies, but the beer guys love it, like tequilas and rums, scotches.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, it's become more and more common to see breweries and distilleries actually not just sharing barrels back and forth, but actually kind of collaborating on a brew or on a whiskey, and that's something that's just kind of interesting to watch. The thing that I love about what's happening in the craft spirits and the craft beer industries right now is it just feels like creativity is at an all-time high. I mean, there's certain things obviously that you have to do in order to be called a bourbon, for example.
Sure.
But it feels like people are just trying all kinds of crazy new ideas, and it just makes you wonder how much fun it must be to be in your sampling room when new things are starting.
Bourbon is going through that same kind of renaissance that beer had gone through, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s, where they're just trying everything with it. It's kind of fun.
Yes, some of it just makes me smile. But the beer guys got us to the dance. If it wasn't for the beer guys going through, figuring out the legislations, figuring out how to get craft into lexicon,
negotiating TABC.
exactly.
Yeah,
if it wasn't for those guys, the guys at Jester King, there were some legends out there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no, you're absolutely right, and it was they blazed the trail, and then everybody was able to kind of start backing them up and putting some things out there. Even in the world of agave spirits, there's so much creativity right now. People are, trying Mexican agave spirits that are not tequila because they don't come from there, but they've tried, making them differently. There's an explosion in mezcal right now.
Mezcal, Sotol.
Yeah, Sotol.
Both of those things are becoming.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We had our oddly enough, our whiskey expert Chris Hart was on the show several months ago, and he brought some Sotol. Remember that?
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
fantastic.
Incredibly interesting.
Yeah, very
Grassy.
very interesting. Yeah,
Very green, grassy.
It was
kind
like
of
it was like
tasting.
it was like the
Chewing on cut.
the gin of Mexican spirits, It
Right.
was, but it was really good. So I just love the creativity, and we're seeing it in beer more and more. Sometimes it works. Most of the time it works. Sometimes it doesn't, but that's okay. I enjoy every now and then trying something and going, well, this is not my favorite, but I'm glad they tried
We tried
it.
a hopped whiskey a few years back, and it was
That
horrific. But hey, kudos for them trying.
Yeah,
God
that's right.
bless them.
I mean,
Exactly
like,
right.
seriously, we opened the bottle and it just made the whole room reek. It was so
and
bad.
yet, if you talk about what is it Glenfiddich that does the IPA cask?
Yeah, they did the IPA
That's
cask.
a wonderful
Jameson
whiskey.
does an IPA cask too.
Yeah. So
And a stout cask.
So just because they tried with one and it didn't work, there may be other ways.
Oh yeah,
to,
it's worth trying. At least you know what doesn't work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I don't know if that. I wonder if that hopped whiskey is still on the market. I haven't seen it.
I
in
haven't
a while.
seen it either. The company makes a bunch of other things that look very interesting.
Yeah, and we'll
they
have to-
apparently
we'll
push
try
the
some more.
envelope quite a bit.
Yeah, quite a bit, particularly in that case. So, so it's been an interesting week. We have a rainy day going on here in our hometown of Houston today.
I know that's weird.
Yeah, it's weird for it to stick around anyway.
Yeah, right.
But I was wondering if you'd had an opportunity, Ian, to smoke anything interesting this
I went
week.
out on my patio this morning.
Yeah?
And I grabbed a cigar out of my humidor, recently split a few boxes with a buddy of mine, and one of the ones he gave me is one I hadn't had before. Is a Don Lino Africa Duma.
Oh, that's
have
very
you seen that
interesting. I
before?
have. It's a very interesting cigar.
So this was a Robusto 5x50. This is a Nestor Miranda AJ Fernandez collab.
Oh, so AJ was involved in
Yes,
this.
it is,
Okay.
yes, it is. And he had apparently released
Instant cred.
right.
If
Instant
AJ's
cred.
involved.
He had apparently released a cigar years ago and then brought it back, but the newest iteration is a blend by AJ Fernandez, or in collaboration with AJ Fernandez.
I was going to say, I think I had one, but it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, so that
know?
would have been a different, vastly different version
Okay.
of it than this one, and I hadn't had it, so I figured, I'll try it. This had a Habano Ecuadorian wrapper, Cameroon binder, and Dominican filler. The appearance on this was medium, light brown, large band with a footer on it. It's a really pretty cigar. Box pressed, a little bit veiny on the wrapper, leathery to the touch, with a little oil on the wrapper. It's not a very pretty cigar. When I was looking closely at the construction, it could just be the one that I had, and I have another one in my humidor. Maybe I should
Sometimes
compare
the
it.
wrapper leaf, though, is
But
yeah.
but the construction had like the cap on it, had a few flaws and things like that. And I didn't think twice about it. I mean, I've smoked a lot of cigars that looked pretty ugly.
and many of them are quite good. So.
Yeah, many of them are just fine. So medium soft on the feel overall. Wasn't packed super tight or anything like that. The pre-light sniff on this, I got barnyard, earth, and a little bit of brownie batter kind of at the foot. Yeah, it was really interesting. That's right up my alley. It smelled really good to me. The pre-light draw, I used a punch on it, had an effortless draw, got a little bit of fruitcake with hints of chocolate and a lot of pepper going on the pre-light draw. The initial light, tangy pepper blast, very peppery retrohale with slight sweetness. Now, I want to tell you that this cigar clocks in at a medium, mostly. If you're a cigar smoker who likes mild to medium cigars, you're going to have to get past the initial light on this cigar. But once you do, you'll be quite happy with it.
So the initial light is a little more than medium.
The initial light is pretty tangy and peppery. It's pretty. It's like that first taste of that very first taste of whiskey. Sometimes is a little strong, right? You got to get your palate.
You got to go in gently.
Yeah.
Right. So but yeah. So and there was a slight sweetness to it as well. Kind of underlying.
I remember maybe the original one, maybe that I had 10 years ago. It seemed like it was a real sort of a Maduro sweetness that it had to it,
Yeah, see, I don't have anything to compare that to.
Yeah.
But this one had a slight sweetness underlying. The first third of the cigar, black and white pepper are prominent. Both oak and cedar were kind of detected. Had that oaky dryness and some nice fresh cut cedar kind of notes to it. Sweet, creamy undertone to it, hints of brownie batter, occasional dark fruit flavors. The retrohale's bold pepper and wood at this point, solid ash, perfect burn. I mean, it burned like a razor.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was nice. And then it went out.
Oh, no.
I set it down, and seconds later, it was completely cold.
Wow.
I know, that's what I said.
I wonder if it was the wrapper, because sometimes those funkier wrappers, the Ecuadorian Habano wrappers, and so sometimes it's just the construction of the leaf. It just doesn't always keep burning without a little retouch.
When you relight a cigar, you want to tip off all of the ash, and sometimes some of the ash hangs on, so you want to brush off as much of it as you can. Well, when I tipped off the ash, every bit of it fell off, like it was perfect for relight. So I relit it.
Okay.
No penalty.
That is good to know.
0 penalty.
That is good to know.
I couldn't believe it. Like it never went out. It was instant and like it never went out.
It lit back up with no problem.
That was just a weird moment for me. It took 2 seconds, but it was a weird moment that it went out that cold. Sweetness moves forward. Brownie and chocolate flavors are in abundance, followed by the oaky notes. Underlying dark fruitiness backed by pepper round out the flavor profile. The retrohale's charred oak and toast. Solid ash, perfect burn for the whole next third of the cigar. I loved how everything in it so far has been just developing and changing. It's a very complex cigar. There's a lot of things going on.
I like when the flavors just kind of
but
weave
it really
in and out.
was like throughout like the first and second third of it really turning into something. So you're watching it, the flavors kind of evolve. The last third is big fluffy smoke. I really like it. Paired exceptionally well with the coffee I was drinking. Dark fruit flavors and oaky notes move ahead of the chocolatey flavors as if taking turns. Pepper remains in the background along with cedar and a creamy sweetness that is the foundation of the palate on this cigar. Medium body, I made a note on here. This is a great cigar for anyone looking to step up from milder blends or wanting to expand more into complex blends. This cigar had a lot of things going on. A couple quick things that I didn't write down. Towards the very end of this, I started picking up a little bit of a cinnamon note in it that was very pleasant just towards the end of it. I smoked it down to pretty much a nub. Solid ash, great burn. Even with it going cold on me once, the relight without the penalty actually negates that completely. 100%. This is a $9 cigar for a 5x50. That's not a very big cigar, but it smoked for an hour almost exactly, and I gave it a 9. I'm sorry, I gave it a 6, $9.
$9 and a 6. So our price to quality scale is a 1 to 10 scale, but if we give something a 5, that means we get you get exactly what you paid for. So that's why he almost bowled me over when he said a 9. I was like, holy cow.
$9 cigar. I wrote it backwards on my...
When it went out, is it possible you were standing in the rain?
No, I was under my cardboard.
Okay, just trying to make sure I understand.
So I might have been distracted by the cat. If you notice, there's a cat in one of the pictures.
I didn't see that. I'll have to look back at that again. So a 6, though. That's
you know what? I just realized I didn't send the pictures. Did I, Adam? So there isn't a cat in one of the pictures. I'll post them later.
Okay, you'll have to post them on the Facebook feed. So no wonder Adam was looking at you kind of funny when you said that. Well, my cigar was pretty interesting this week. When I first started smoking cigars, Macanudo was one of my favorite brands. The light-bodied Connecticut wrapper cigars were always extremely well-made and easy to smoke. But as my tastes have changed over the years, these days I don't smoke that many of the mellower sticks, so Macanudo's not usually where I go when I walk into the big walk-in humidor at my favorite tobacconist. But I got the Macanudo Cru Royale, a Toro, in a group of cigars for my birthday. Thank you, Lionel. And from the very beginning, it looked much different than your Cafe Hyde Park Macanudo that I was more used to from back in the day. And so I thought, all right, this should be interesting. A few bumps and veins on the wrapper, but overall, a pretty nice-looking cigar, darker colored than your usual Macanudos. And the pre-light sniff was nice and rich, which I really got me kind of excited about it. The draw gave me nice amounts of leather, some nuttiness, and some really rich tobacco notes. The wrapper on this baby is an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, just like the one you smoked. And by the way, that leaf, I'm just discovering this because I've had a number of cigars that use that wrapper. That's just not a smooth leaf. So you're not going to get...
No, in texture, you mean.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
exactly.
not in flavor.
No, talking about texture. So you're not going to get one of those cigars that looks like a Padron anniversary.
Right.
Just beautifully sleek and stuff. This is a little rugged, a little more rustic.
They are soft to the touch, though, overall.
Yes,
they have a nice soft
and
feel
the flavor's terrific on them. So I understand why they're being used as much. So Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, a Dominican La Vega Especial binder. And for those of you who
That's easy
don't,
for you to say.
Well, for those of you who don't speak Spanish, La Vega Especial is Spanish for the Vega Especial.
Oh, man, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, so glad I could clear that up. Filler was from Nicaragua, Brazil, and the Dominican Republic. I used my trusty punch cutter and lit the cigar up. Right from the beginning, I could tell it wasn't going to be a powerhouse, but this was not your father's Macanudo, for sure. No Nicaraguan pepper blast, but there was enough of a pepper note, even early on, to leave a distinct tang on the tongue that was nice. A lot of leather and cedar in the first third. Great draw, perfect burn, as Ian likes to say.
I love to say it's a very bold-looking cigar, by the way.
Right,
it has a very it has a presence to it.
When I think Macanudo, I always think mellow.
Right,
easy, and this is much bolder and kind of jumps out at you. An almost razor straight line of burn was hanging on for about an inch before I flicked it off. Felt like I was tempting fate, so I flicked it off. Second third got a little more complex. Nuttiness mixed with some earth and a hint of cocoa. Not a chocolate bomb by any means, but there was some cocoa and maybe a little bit of cinnamon that kind of came to the forefront. Final third was very good. Rich tobacco notes, white pepper, a leathery finish, and some earth on the retrohale. Construction continued to be outstanding. But then I remembered Macanudo construction was always
Yeah, yeah.
outstanding when I would smoke those back in the day. So room note was very pleasant. Overall, it was very good, comparable to maybe a Rocky Patel Edge or an Alec Bradley Black Market. Not a powerhouse, but definitely medium bodied. It does make me wonder a little bit about the branding, though. Macanudo is pretty much synonymous with good quality, lighter bodied cigars.
Mm-hmm.
The Cru Royale was great, but is it confusing for them to have something like this in the line? I mean, would it make sense to you if Diesel had a light bodied Connecticut
That would be weird.
version? Right, exactly.
But Macanudo is a brand because they do a lot of lighter body cigars. I think this one looks bolder than a lot of the other cigars I see, so it actually has that kind of
right. Well, and then if you think
bolder,
about it,
more austere look.
if Porsche can make an SUV, I guess these guys can add anything to their lineup that they want to.
SUV.
you know?
I think that what is it? The Panamera.
Panamera,
That's
yeah.
straight up a station wagon, right?
Yeah, that's their
like they call them a crossover, but those are actually
that's their-
station wagons.
Yeah, that's like their 4-door car, which that just goes against everything I believe in. But
the mid-size crossover idea. No,
yeah,
just no.
I
station
digress.
wagon.
So overall, I enjoyed the Cru Royale. The only strike against it maybe was the price. A Rocky Patel Edge is about $7. You can get an Alec Bradley Black Market for $7 to $8. Cru Royale is $8.50 to $9, depending on where you pick it up. Yeah, and that's not too bad if you want to try one, but I don't know that it beats those other cigars. So I'm going to say I recommend it. It was quite good, and it barely squeaks to a 5 on price to quality. Felt like it was worth it, but I don't know how it would do head-to-head against a few of the medium-bodied cigars that were a dollar or two cheaper. So anyway, there you go. The Macanudo Cru Royale, definitely worth it. And I was really glad that I got one as a gift because I don't know if I would have bought one, and so it got me to experience and try it, and it was very cool. That's the awesome thing about birthdays. If people give you cigars, you get to try some things that might not be what you would have bought,
right.
and it can be kind of cool. All right, Charlie Garrison and Lino Branch are here from Garrison Brothers, and that means we are just wasting time not tasting Garrison Brothers whiskey. So let's get into that in the next segment. Plus, we want to find out all about what's going on at Garrison Brothers these days. And, we also have drinking news coming up on the show. And that will be interesting, largely because the drinking news teaser headline today is, Officer, I'll be right back. And we'll be right back.
So are you just going to rip on that?
Welcome back. It's Smokin' and Toastin'. This is the
is.
program that is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com. Great shirts on the web for cigar lovers and the people who love them. Check them out online, MyCigarShirts.com. New designs coming for fall. MyCigarShirts.com because...
Cigars.
Yes, sir.
We have a reason to celebrate here because Royale just came out with this year's batch of coffee porter.
And this is
It's
something
so
that
good.
comes out this time of year, right? It
comes out this time
seasonal?
of year.
Yeah, that's what
And
I
it
thought.
is, out of all the coffee beers, it is the coffee beer.
You've talked about this before. It's a strong contender in the coffee
Yes.
in the coffee category. Ian, if I told you that a new cigar and whiskey bar just opened up in a very famous city, what would be the last place you'd expect that to be?
Saskatchewan?
Well, maybe.
I just said that because that's fun to say.
Saskatchewan is fun to say. Yeah.
That's just one of those words like Chapultepec. It's just fun to say.
And
you
even more, or Lake Titicaca.
know? Like to do.
That's always a fun one to say. That's a real place.
So,
by the way. Look,
somewhere in Oklahoma,
no, that's not where it is. It's
Indiana.
You would never guess, though, that there'd be a new cigar and spirits bar opening in Beverly Hills, California.
What?
Yep, it's happening.
Now, we've talked on this show. You guys don't know this, but, if you haven't been to California recently and you are a cigar smoker, you can smoke a cigar anywhere you want as long as it's not outside or inside.
Yeah, I believe that.
Anywhere you want. And in California, to be able to smoke in an establishment.
That's nuts.
Well, we did a show from
Right.
the Beverly Hills Cigar Lounge,
yeah.
and it was a great place. They are grandfathered in, and they also have to. There's some regulations they have to abide
They can't
by.
hire employees and subject them to cigar smoke, so you can't. Like that's the reason they are only family owned and only the family can run.
Yeah,
it.
so the owner
like that's
and
one of the
his
ways
wife,
they eke by it in Beverly Hills.
They get by that. Well, they had one of the very few elegant hotspots in Beverly Hills where you can not only partake of some of the rarest spirits, but pair them with a premium cigar without fear of being fined or possibly arrested. Is the newly opened Mayborne Beverly Hills Cigar and Whiskey Bar. It is apparently quite fancy, and it is one of only 4 permitted lounges within the Beverly Hills city limits where you can smoke. We did
Somebody
a show
was
from one of them.
greasing wheels.
Yeah, well, apparently they were grandfathered in. Nazareth, the Buena Vista Cigar Club, which is where we were, and the members-only Grand Havana Club. So it's tucked away upstairs from the Terrace Restaurant, and it is in Beverly Hills, and they've got a whole bunch of rare whiskeys if you're, if you're into dropping a huge amount of money.
I wonder if
I like those
1/3 of their
people.
front door is covered with a smoking warning.
Probably. That's probably true.
Warning, Surgeon General said.
Actually, when you come in the front door, they give you a T-shirt with that warning and say you have to wear this while you're inside. That's probably the way it goes. But I thought that was interesting. So go check it out if you're in California. The Mayborne Beverly Hills Cigar and Whiskey Bar in the city limits of the lovely town of Beverly Hills. Yeah, just absolutely crazy. I am so excited that we have Charlie and Alana from Garrison Brothers here with us today. And I noticed that you have 4 different bottles that you brought with you. Is that one more than you brought last time? Was it 3 last time?
Oh, no, I think I brought 5.
Okay, maybe.
time.
You only remember the first 3.
I was just wondering if there was something new.
We really enjoyed the first 2. The last 3, we're going to have to start with those so we can taste them.
Is there something new you guys are excited about?
Yes, the Guadalupe is our newest one that we just put out. Very excited for y'all to try that one.
So when we go through our tasting here, is the Guadalupe going to be last?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. We're going to start with a small batch and work our way through some of the
Well,
Guadalupe.
small batch is just such a wonderful phrase, isn't it? Small batch. You immediately
It means nothing.
Yeah, but your expectations are immediately set,
Yes,
right?
yes.
That it's going to be something special.
It's been a fun debate why we call it small batch, because it's small batches, but that term means nothing. So
Right.
we always argue with each other.
Because
what should we call it?
in theory,
It's a catchphrase.
in
Yeah.
theory, any distillery that's not mass producing is doing small batch. Right?
There are people
for
making
everything.
more small batch in a week than I can make in a year.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
small batch is a very
That's a good
subjective
point.
term.
So when you call something small batch, then what is it you're trying to say to the consumer about that whiskey?
So in our case, every Monday morning for our small batch, our master distiller Donis Todd will dump about 50, depending on the week, but 50 to 55 barrels.
Okay.
And that's going to be one batch of bourbon. And I can get into it geeky levels, but the bottom line is we pot distill, so every batch becomes kind of unique. We don't have a continuous still, so each one is its own barrel, its own batch. When we marry those barrels together to get our small batch, it's exactly that. It's 55 barrels mixed together in Elsie, which is a big old stainless milk container we stole from a milk company a long time ago.
And you named it Elsie.
Named
Yep,
it
I
Elsie.
named it
love
Elsie.
it. Love it.
Yep.
So does that mean that if I went out and bought a bottle of Garrison Brothers small batch today, and then went and bought another one a year from now, that they might be a little bit different?
Listening to you guys talk about cigars, you may think so. I mean, because it's going to be so nuanced. Donis has gotten so good at creating our small batch bourbon that I would have said it 2 years ago, yeah, you'd get more and more and more nuance each time. Now he's gotten it down to where he knows exactly what he wants, But the answer is it could be. Absolutely, it could be.
I hope that Budweiser doesn't hire him away from you, because we've talked about this before. That movie that I watched, that's about and it's a documentary. It's about the contest between all of the Budweiser brewmasters at the various Budweiser breweries around the world, and they have an internal in-company contest every year, not to see who can brew the best beer, but to see who can brew the most Budweisery Budweiser that they can.
That's kind of the antithesis of Donis's plans.
That's like having a color by number contest, right?
Right. You know, this tastes a lot like Budweiser. Nice job, St. Louis. But you guys from London, you nailed it. This is even more Budweisery than this Budweiser.
No, that's
3.6% more Budweiser than the last Budweiser.
And what's crazy is, this documentary, they've got the brewmasters on, and they're talking about it, and they're just they are so passionate about creating the most formulaic Budweiser they possibly can, just like you would imagine your guy would be about just coming up with something amazing and new and different and
the ultimate
and
replica. They're trying to create the ultimate replica.
It's like imagine being a person and then taking all the fun out of it.
Right.
I'm married. I don't want to talk about that.
But I will say this.
I can't say anything more.
There is something though to be said for consistency. And if I buy a bottle of it this year and a bottle of it next year, and it's just completely different, that would not necessarily be a good thing unless that's what I was looking for and you named it something else. We always talk about that with cigars, how they can come up with a tobacco blend and then keep doing that blend with the crops from the next year, where everything's going to be at least a little different. That's to me very impressive.
I celebrate flavor. If I go in and I find, for instance, a standard line, a core line, Garrison Brothers whiskey, and then I really like it, the next thing I'm going to buy is probably not that. I'm going to buy something else in your line.
Something else in the line.
Just try it.
Exactly.
I want to try different things. I love it when companies do their limited releases, because they're always going to have different flavors. They're going to taste a little different. It just makes me happy.
And we definitely see this in craft beer right now, where the sort of new normal has become, other than a handful of sort of like flagship beers, the new normal has become them always coming out with a new series, a new IPA, a new stout, a new, something a little bit different than some of the last ones that they did. The only thing about it that isn't cool is that, boy, if you get something you really like and you can't exactly go back to it, but you can always find something else.
Single barrel bourbon, I get it all day long. Man, where's barrel 9,174? And I'm like, I drank it.
And it was good.
Gone.
So that brings up another question, and then we'll do some drinking. But we, in our brains, imagine your job as being, wandering through the barrels, tasting a little here, tasting a little there.
You have your little thief on your on your belt.
How close is that to reality?
My job?
Yeah.
No, I don't get that kind of respect. The Donis Todd's job, that is his job. He walks around with a power drill and a Glencairn glass and these little things that look like golf tees, and he goes and drills holes in barrels.
So he drills a hole in a barrel, fills up the Glencairn,
whacks the golf tee in there,
puts the golf tee in place, and goes, okay, now I know what that barrel's about.
Yeah, he hand selects every barrel. His objective every day, when we're talking about sort of the Anheuser-Busch idea of consistency, his is to make better bourbon than yesterday. So
I love
that's
that.
his.
Just love
and it's the antithesis, because Donis and my brother, who drives me insane, don't seem to care about price. What it costs to make that damn bourbon is not something that really hits their radar.
That's not how they're planning.
That's kind of my problem to
not in
figure
their
out.
planning
Gotcha.
stages. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so Donis makes small batch. His palate, he has just spent 20 years focused on that. And then when he gets a characteristic from a barrel, that's the seed of the next thing, the Guadalupe, the Honeydew, the Laguna. It's always with the barrels steer him to what Garrison Brothers is going to release in 5 years. It's pretty crazy.
So he's already got in his head what your releases are going to be like 5 years from now.
And that's a long view on things.
Isn't it crazy?
Awesome.
He's in Vegas right now, and he took a Instagram photo of a bottle of a distillate I didn't even know we had.
Right? I was shocked.
Yeah,
when I saw that. I thought it was
What was it, at
photoshopped.
a bar in Vegas, or did he have one with
Hell if I know. I don't get to make those kind. Donis does what Donis wants. I'm afraid of him. He's bigger than me. He's smarter than me.
I love it.
But yeah, I looked at that and I knew within seconds my phone blew up with people going, "Where do I get it?"
Where do I get it?
I don't even know where he got it.
And you just have to, I've said this at the risk of repeating myself because I've said this before on the show, but when I hear about someone who has that kind of a job, I am still so mad at my high school guidance counselor.
Right.
Because I had no idea that job existed.
Never said a thing.
I could have been, prepping and preparing and learning and experimenting.
I was so ignorant back
getting
then.
ready
I
for
thought the
that.
guy delivering beer had a cool job.
Right, exactly.
Do you want to hear an hysterical story about Donis? He just told me this the other day. When he was 8 years old, I'm going to get never trust a thing I say, all right?
Right.
Don't judge me by my dates, my times, because I'm making it up. But when
When he
Donis,
was young.
yeah, but when he was young, he was doing his school play, and he lived in Ohio at the time, and he was a willow tree, and he nailed his willow tree. And at the end, he had to get up in front of the whole school, all 25 students, and say, "I'm Donis Todd, and I want to do this when I grow up." And the kid in front of him said, "I want to be a doctor," and the one said an astronaut, and one said a cop. And Donis Todd, at 8 years old, said, "And when I grow up, I want to be a distiller like my grandpa."
Wow, that's so cool. At
awesome.
8 years old, see that, and
Love it.
I think that's what it takes.
Isn't that crazy?
You talk about them, Tiger Woods' dad teaching him to putt at like 5 years old and stuff. It's that you have to know that early on if you're going to become a master distiller.
He said he got chewed up one side and down the other by his dad on the car ride home because nobody knew Grandpa was a distiller. Because he was not legally distilling.
Little family secret
Yep.
there. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome story.
Well,
Crack me up.
it is a great story and reminds me of my stage debut in second grade. I played a toothbrush.
All right.
I still remember my lines, although I will not recite them for you here because I want people to stay around and enjoy our thoughts on some of this.
When
Garrison Brothers
we
whiskey.
run out of show ideas, we're just gonna have to do a full production of your old play
my old
and let
play?
you be
Yeah.
that best toothbrush that you've ever
I
been.
was a damn good toothbrush.
Felt it.
Yeah. Actually, I will tell you this story. I had to start wearing glasses when I was in second grade, and I hated it. And the week before the play and everybody gathered around, I had to get my first pair of glasses. And I just thought I looked goofy and stupid because I looked goofy and stupid. And I remember I came out and did my toothbrush lines, and I guess they were a little bit humorous because the crowd laughed, and I went backstage and started crying because I thought they were laughing at me and my glasses.
Oh no!
Yeah, no kidding. This is what I remember.
But it was your actual
Yeah.
toothbrush
To this-
performance that
yes,
was fantastic.
just
that's right.
nailed the character.
I nailed the toothbrush.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. To this day, I cry after the show a lot, but usually that's because I've tasted something really inspiringly delicious. Speaking of, what are we tasting first here?
So we're going to start with small batch.
Okay,
I don't know if we can shuffle one of those over to Adam.
we can do that. Adam is. And I appreciate you pouring for him because one of the things we try to do here on the show is make sure that the producer gets samples so he doesn't start asking for a raise and stuff.
You have to buy them with booze.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what
exactly.
my brother did for me for like 4 years when we started this thing. You can drink your income.
Now, tell me, when you first started this, was it always your interest to do this, or what steered you towards starting a company called Garrison Brothers?
So I'm not sure if I've mentioned this, but my brother's an idiot.
Okay,
And
I don't think you've been that clear about it.
okay,
but,
yeah, I don't want to be gray in this.
Yes.
But
Like, how do you really feel?
yeah, and I'm the kid brother too, so my entire life is harassing Dan. But Dan, 20 years ago, he decided he was going to make bourbon. I came down to talk him out of it because it's the worst business model I'd ever read in my entire life. But if there's a bad decision, I want in. And so it's the way I think. And so I jumped on board with him. And fortunately, Dan has a weird vision. He has the ability to know what's 5, 8, 10 years out. He always has. And everything he's ever done. He did advertising. He's done all these different careers. And he always knew what was coming. And Dan has an unbelievable ability to stay true to a vision. And so that's what started. My job is to keep him between buoys. That's all I do in this world. Is Dan will get excited about something, and the next thing I know, we're in farming ostriches or something. And so
I hear there's big money in emus.
it takes a while to be good money in bourbon.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, you guys though have really kind of set the standard, as far as I'm concerned, for Texas whiskey, and I do want to talk about that a little bit later, and get your take on the larger scene of Texas whiskey, what you think about it, and where it's headed. But for the moment, let's just talk about this small batch. Wow, Ian,
let's talk
thoughts?
about caramel and cinnamon.
Oh my goodness, yeah, it's just
love this.
It's just so. It's so easy to drink.
And such a pleasant sweetness, and then that mineral water kind of aftertaste.
The viscosity. That's if there's one thing that carries through with Garrison Brothers, it's viscosity. There's a mouthfeel to it that I can't find anywhere else.
There's some whiskeys that are delicious, but are not nearly this easy to drink. This is both delicious, and it just is so pleasing. To just the whole concept, getting the flavors, swallowing it down. The viscosity probably has a lot to do with that, don't you think?
Absolutely.
That's just the whole mouthfeel and experience.
Yeah, there's an oiliness to Garrison Brothers that's unique, and it has to do with a half a dozen very, very specific things of where we're making it and how Donis makes it. And it's the thing that I could sit there and pour 20 bourbons, but when you drink a Garrison Brothers, they'll know.
You can know.
They'll know which one's us.
For those of you listening who aren't as familiar with what oiliness does in a liquor, especially whiskey, those kind of things, because we use that term from time to time. First off, when you look at it in the glass, you can see it literally just sticks to the glass all over.
Legs.
Much like legs in a wine. But the next thing, what it really does for the flavor is it gives you a fuller mouthfeel overall. And then after you take a sip, and especially after second and third subsequent sips, it really coats the mouth and leaves this wonderful flavor throughout the entire mouth.
Yeah, it's like it distributes it more fully across the palate and allows you to just take it in more.
And it lingers a little bit, but in a good way, in a great way.
Yeah, the linger is something we're proud of it. So when you're drinking Garrison Brothers, that first sip, you're just getting it on the side of the mouth. You're not getting it up top. And as that starts to relax and your saliva comes in and really starts getting together with it, then it'll start to climb up to the roof of your mouth, and then you start to really get that richness. It's the finish that is one of my favorite aspects of Garrison.
Absolutely. The finish is just terrific. And not all whiskeys finish this deliciously, because on the finish on this small batch, I'm getting all those flavors on the finish. Sometimes the finish will kind of narrow itself to one or two of the flavors, and I'm getting all of that just just like a
I don't
flavor
know if
party.
this is the right term or what term I should use, but there's almost a tobacco-y flavor going on in there that's really, really pleasant.
Kind of that dry,
like when you walk into a humidor, or you smell those tobacco leaves, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ian, I'm really curious, since this first beer that we're going to try is in fact a dark ale with millet and smoked maple syrup, I'm really curious how this might pair up with this whiskey. So you want to give it a try? Let me grab you some.
Say no more, sir.
I will grab you some.
I've got to tell you, this one you started me with is pairing quite lovely.
No, that's great. Which one did you?
This
You
has
went
an
with the coffee.
incredibly interesting smell to it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect from that beer, to be honest.
It's not
with
what
you.
I expected.
Yeah,
on the nose.
What is interesting about it is of the three beers we're going to have today, it is actually the lowest ABV, and I sort of expected, when I looked at it, for it to be one of the higher ones. So this is going to be a surprise to me all the way around. But I'm just wondering, based on how they describe the smoked maple syrup, if that might be something that works really nicely with this whiskey. So.
Awesome.
Can,
I'm excited. Whoops. I'm sorry about grabbing that, sir.
You can pass.
His wife's right there.
It's
pass
nice to
those
feel
around.
wanted.
It's always a good thing. And you should see what he's like when Matt Booth from Room 101 Cigars is here. That's a whole nother spectacle of appreciation going on. So
I feel like we have the start of a bromance.
yeah, pretty much.
All I can tell you is that every time I turn around, you guys are handing me another drink. I'm starting to feel like you guys may have Donis's job. This is a heck of a gig you've got here, gents.
It's people asked us.
Did everybody get one here?
I think so. People asked us quite early on, what made us want to start doing a show like this, and our answer is the same every time, and it's very simple.
Samples.
Yeah. Why not, right?
Okay, so I haven't tried this yet, but on the nose, it's so
it's very
bizarre. It smells like barbecue.
It's very,
Oh my God.
like a
Is it
malty
not just me?
barbecue. Well, maybe it's the millet.
Pork
I don't know.
barbecue.
Yeah,
That's
it
so
does.
interesting.
That's so weird. It smells like barbecue meat.
That's
Man, if you hadn't
such a-
said that, I would have never gotten there either.
All right,
Like
so
that's just what pops into my head. It's like that. It's like the smell like if you've ever had a smoker when you walk by it the next day after you used it. That's what it smells like in a good way, kind of weird way, but in a good way.
So
I've
I
never
don't
had
Tastes
that
like
in beer.
barbecue.
I was going to say, I don't know how this is going to be when I go back to the whiskey, but it really settles
This
with an
beer
interesting flavor.
is a
doesn't
pulled
it?
pork sandwich.
It
It's
is.
exactly
It
what
is
it
a
is.
pulled pork
And
sandwich.
I just had a pulled pork
WTF,
sandwich
people.
this week.
What is happening?
They shouldn't have called it woven in time. They should have called it pulled pork.
Is it fat washed?
It's dark ale brewed with millet and smoked maple syrup. So smoked maple syrup has obviously given us that. It says by weaving together our collective
Right, that's
experiences
the smoky pulled pork
and
thing.
influences. Allagash and Sankofa, is that how you say it? Sankofa, created the expressive and balanced dark ale. Brewed with millet and smoked maple syrup, this beer abounds with easy drinking notes. Hold on a second. I don't know if I'd call this easy drinking.
Well, but it's
But
not
easy
as
drinking
big
notes
as you might
of
think.
chocolate,
It's not as boozy.
cola, burnt sugar, and hints of dried fruit. They left off pulled pork sandwich.
Yeah, well, maybe they thought it wouldn't sell very well if they said
I
it was
can
a
tell you
pulled
right now,
pork
I want to
beer.
run home. I want to pour a bunch in a pot, and I
Yeah.
want to throw some pork in it
Oh,
and let it
wouldn't,
just sit.
wouldn't it be great?
Oh
yeah,
my
just
God,
just
simmer it
make
down.
some. Pulled pork is one of those things that works great in the crock pot. You know,
Yeah.
So
I
put in the
want to
crock
point
pot,
out
pour
with
some
this,
of
that
in.
once you get past the initial
Barbecue flavor.
barbecue flavor that happens, it really starts to become, you start getting that maple in there and everything else. It starts to become a sweeter beer.
Wow.
But I think that palate shock at first was a little bizarre.
So take a
actually
drink
bright.
of that and then go back to the single barrel.
The small batch.
I'm sorry, the small batch. Yes, for me, it kind of condensed it down to a more singular sort of a note. I don't get as much complexity out of it as I was getting before I had the
It
beer.
oddly enough turns it into a bit of chocolate
Yes, there is some chocolate in there.
and cinnamon.
Okay, second
Going back.
second drink back in the whiskey, it rounds out a little more, and you get some of those flavors back. But the first time, it's like it just condensed everything into a more singular note.
Yeah, because with the beer I was drinking before, it was I guess the
just
hoppiness of
opened
it or
it up,
whatever,
yep.
it really gave it there was a lot going on.
Yes, yes.
And this is sort of simplifies it a lot when you
Yeah, it's not a bad flavor. It just isn't as. But then when I went back again for a second drink of the small batch, it started opening up more and returning to more of what it was like in the beginning.
I like this beer. It's kind of like that cigar I had earlier. Like there's that initial light on that cigar was big.
This is
And you gotta be ready for that. The initial sip on this, that palate shock, is very pulled pork sandwich, and then after that it becomes actually kind of sweet
right.
and really really interesting.
It is one of the more unusual beers we've had in a long time.
I'm enjoying the heck out of this. I think it's interesting. I think
great.
it's delicious. I love the lightness
It's
of it. It's the
so
finish.
interesting on the
Yeah.
palate.
Woven in Time is an interesting name. I don't know if I connect, but
It's a cool art on the can too. It's just kind of a tapestry woven piece of art looking thing. It's very cool.
Very cool. All right, we got to take a break. We will be back. I will be going over some cigars to watch for that are coming out to retailers for you. Plus, Tullamore Dew, the whiskey, has just released a new bag of chips. It's not a bag of chips. It's a bag of whiskey, and I'll tell you about that coming up.
That everything you just said confused me.
Well, you know how you'd say, he thinks he's all that in a bag of chips? I think I'm all that in a bag of whiskey.
Nice.
That's what I'll tell you. And we'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting 255.
Make your
Welcome back. It is Smoking and Toasting, show number 255. We are brought to you, ladies and gentlemen, by the fine folks at MyCigarShirts.com. They are great supporters of the show, and we appreciate you supporting them as well. MyCigarShirts.com, because
Cigars. It's hoodie season. Go on there and shop.
Yeah.
If you don't wear hoodies, I do. Shop and buy one for me.
Mm-hmm. Our program is brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com. Am I passing both of these? I think he's got one here.
Did I overpour? It's a habit I have.
You poured 4. If you poured one more than Miss Tiffany got one.
So I think that's an extra.
Right.
And it will not go to waste, I assure you. So it's show number 255. We're all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Oh, did you not get one?
This was my previous one. I was trying to finish it.
Okay, gotcha. Well,
that's where we got lost.
We have Charlie from Garrison Brothers, Charlie Garrison himself, in the studio with us today, talking whiskey, talking Garrison Brothers. And what is this next one that we're going to try?
So this is a single barrel. We were talking earlier about the idea that once you fall in love with a single barrel, it's like your date you don't get to have anymore.
Right. It's just this one, and then you're done.
This is it.
Done. Yeah.
And so when Donis is pulling barrels, I started to say earlier, he's looking for small batch bourbon, right? But over time, the barrels kind of talk to him, and he starts to decide what barrels are starting to have similar characteristics, and he'll set those aside to create whatever his vision is next. And usually in us, that's finishing that original small batch. All we make on the ranch is small batch bourbon. It's the only product we make. Everything else is a finished version of small batch, whether it's another barrel or whether he's got some other creative idea for it.
Got it.
So
small batch is the juice.
That's Garrison Brothers,
Yeah.
And then when you're getting to a barrel that's got something to it that kind of makes him smirk a little bit, the barrel's just a little different and off the path. If it doesn't fall into a category that he's starting to develop, then he'll set it aside and we just barrel it by itself.
And that becomes a single barrel.
Yep.
Okay.
Nice. So
if it works for something that he's working on, he keeps it in, he keeps it for that.
Correct.
And you said he has a pretty far ahead vision, so he can see, he kind of like when he's tasting, he knows what it's going to be like in a year or those kind of things, or has at least a pretty good idea.
He's working 8 years out. In his head, he's working 8 years out. When he's pulling barrels, he's tasting it and saying,
how big is that guy's brain?
It's creepy. And he'll say, if you go to him and say, I'm looking for a barrel that has butterscotch and raisin, he'll literally look at you and go,
782.
That's exactly what, and it creeps me out. I just look at him and I'm like, good grief.
I do want to point out, when you said the barrels speak to him, it reminds me of that moment in Idiocracy when he's like, and finally he gave up and said, he talked to the plants, and they said that they wanted water.
Well, listen,
totally makes sense.
Different people choose to deploy their, memorization and talents in different ways. Some people learn to speak Klingon. Other people can tell you which barrel has butterscotch and honey flavors, whatever it is. So
he spends more time worried about his palate. I mean, he focuses on it in a way that is, it's just bizarre to me. It's amazing.
Can you insure his palate at Lloyd's of London?
I can tell you this: when Donis is walking around the ranch, we run around and push anyone back because with COVID.
Yeah.
If that guy loses his smell and taste, I'm dead man walking.
You're not kidding.
We're all unemployed.
You're
so
not
it's
kidding.
that
Wow.
guy.
I hadn't thought of that, but you're right with COVID, because that's how even some people who recover don't recover with the same sense of taste and smell that they once had.
It scares me to death.
I totally get it.
Do you like chocolate and cinnamon and baking spice?
Yes.
I get chocolate right out of the front on that.
Chocolate is
You get a little
right
chocolate
there.
on the
Cinnamon
nose
on
of
the
this.
finish. And then just kind of an overall warm, almost a holiday spirit.
And,
You're right.
and this is proof like the first one you had. So this is a 94 proof.
So, and you're right, though. Chocolate is the first. That's what hits
just
the
right
palate
out
first.
of it. Just
almost like a chocolate bar.
But the nice thing about that is it's got such a sweetness up front, but it finishes with a spice that leaves it so it doesn't feel too sweet at all. It just finishes clean.
I get kind of a white pepper finish on that.
So let me
Yeah,
ask
I
you
can
this.
get that.
When Donis, your distiller, is finding these different characteristics. He's finding the different barrels that have, and this one's a single barrel. So this one he thought, okay, this is different enough from the other things I'm doing. I'm going to pull this out.
It's vastly different from the previous
Is that
one.
something that he can plan for? In other words, can he say, all right, I'd like to have a distillate that is going to wind up giving me chocolate and cinnamon, and so in order to do that, I'm going to prepare it this way. I'm going to put it in this kind of a barrel. I'm going to do it. Is it predictive, or is it more like happy accidents?
And just
all
to
around?
complicate his question, does he talk to the barrels before they're full, or do they not speak until after they have whiskey?
So it's, an honest answer to that, which I think is kind of cool in its, because one of the things I'm sure we'll talk about is Texas and what's happening in Texas and whiskey, right? But what's happened on the ranch is our aging, that heat exchange. It's 100 degrees during the day, it's 50 at night. We're getting a crazy
temperature
rapid aging process. What takes us, per a guy called Jim Murray, who wrote the Whiskey Bible, he actually said 1 year on our ranch is about 5 years in Kentucky.
Not surprising because of the contraction and expansion of that.
70 degrees.
Well,
Because
like
you guys
said,
are just a
if
little
you go
north of us, and then you're west of us. So you guys get
4.5 hours north.
big
northwest.
changes in
Yep.
temperature.
Huge
But like you
changes.
said, you can have a day that goes to 100 degrees in the afternoon and drops down to what at night? Maybe
It'll drop down to 50 easily.
50. Yeah, because that's the kind of temperature.
And the
swing
magic
you can
number is
get
70,
in one day.
right? 70 alcohol molecules start to expand. Under 70, they contract. So we're pushing in and out of these barrels. In the morning, we're pushing out. In the night, we're coming back in.
I love that.
So it's a radical different way to make bourbon. And what that's done for Donis, to the barrel question that you were asking, is it's allowed him to learn so much faster.
Sure.
Oh,
because
right.
the whole
5
process-
times faster
the whole
as
process
for
is
the Whiskey
accelerated.
Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
so
right.
so it's a blessing because we have one brilliant individual who has a vision, and he's learning what would take somebody in Kentucky 100 years, and he gets it in 20. And we've been at it for 15. So
Right.
this guy has got he's
So what you're telling me then is he's just going to keep getting better and better.
that's that.
Does-
When I taste you through what you're tasting through, with our Laguna Madre, which he just released, if we could afford to make nothing but that,
Yeah.
oh my God! And he keeps doing it. He keeps learning.
So does he ever bring you something like maybe the Laguna Madre is that? Where it brings you something and you think, oh my God, this is just so amazing, but we're going to have to price it in order for it to make sense.
Yeah.
A lot higher than we want our whiskey to be priced. Does that happen?
There's things Donis has created that we just have to accept we're going to lose money on. It's
Wow,
it's
that's
just
so crazy.
So we won't make enough of it
Right.
to lose our business.
Right.
But we're going to make enough to show off.
Right,
And say what we're capable of.
But it does. It continues to expand the legend of the brand.
Yeah.
You know?
Does the rapid aging process that you get, does that have a huge effect on the angel share out of the
Oh
barrels?
my goodness. Yeah. So Kentucky.
Big time.
Yeah. Kentucky's going to lose 5-6%, right, per year angel share.
Yeah.
Which is evaporation through a barrel. Fancy words. But in our case, we'll lose 14% a year. You pull a 5-year-old barrel, there's less than half in it. Yeah, we'll pull barrels that, if Donis has barrels like Cowboy Bourbon, which is his favorite barrels on the ranch that he sets aside, he doesn't proof them down, and it's just what he
had
feels
that.
is his
It's so
vision.
good.
I'll get a barrel that's got 5 bottles in it. All day, every
I'm
day.
sorry to laugh, but it's just like,
Oh,
are
yeah.
you,
You have
be
to laugh.
kidding me.
You'll cry.
You gotta be,
Yeah.
you gotta be kidding me. All right. We got to take a break and come back. When we do, we have a lot to talk about. I want to talk Texas whiskey. We got into it a little bit here, but I want to really get your take on what this thing, what this whole scene is looking like, and why you think that it has exploded the way that it has over the past several years. Clearly, you guys have been at the forefront of this. You're one of the most talked about and awarded distilleries in the Lone Star State. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, still to come, I am going to tell you about some cigars to watch for. I'll tell you about Tullamore Dew's bag of chips, bag of whiskey, and of course, drinking news is on the way. Our teaser headline today, Officer. I'll be right
And
back.
as the last parting shot,
And we'll be right back.
this whiskey
Yeah.
needs a pipe to go with it.
Ooh,
With a big
now you're talking.
aromatic, yeah.
Pipe show coming up.
Is he going back to smelling the beer? It smells just like that pork sandwich again. It's so bizarre.
Welcome back. It is Smoking and Toasting. We are the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Charlie Garrison in the studio from Garrison Brothers today. And speaking of hand-rolled cigars and craft beer, that can be a tricky combination.
I'm for them.
Yeah, but it can be a tricky combination, beer and cigars. Hops and tobacco sometimes play well together on the palate, and sometimes they don't. It just depends. But General Cigar Company and Cigar City Brewing believe they have found the perfect pairing. Cigar City Brewing, based out of Tampa, has teamed up with General Cigar for a new beer-friendly cigar called Cigar City Brewing Maduro by Punch.
Their Maduro beer
Yes.
is fantastic. It's a
it-
brown ale.
It is wonderful.
and
It's brown ale.
Fantastic.
And it does go very well
it goes
with cigars.
Great
Yeah.
with cigars.
Well, Cigar City Brewing Maduro by Punch, the new cigar, comes in two sizes: the Magnum at 5 1/4 inches by 54, and a 6 by 50 Toro. They have it packaged in 20-count boxes, and they retail for about $8.29 and $8.49 respectively. They are shipping now to select liquor store chains across the United States, with a larger launch coming early next year for cigar stores.
I
So-
will seek that out. I remember Perdomo had a whole series that was
Yes.
made to go with
Yes.
different styles of beers.
And those were quite good. I
they were
recall.
quite good.
The Punch senior brand manager, Ed Lehman, said the new cigar pairs beautifully with the Cigar City portfolio of beers and also stands strong on its own. So that's something to look forward to. And there's good news and bad news for Fuente fans. First, the bad news. Shipments for the Arturo Fuente Rare Pinks were expected this month, but they've been delayed, and no clear delivery date has been established. But they say the delay was caused by logistical complications related to the pandemic. I'm sure you guys know what that's like, right?
We felt some pain.
The good news, they have decided to send Casa Fuente cigars instead. These are the smokes that until now have only been available at the Casa Fuente Lounge in Las Vegas. Now they're going to be available just everywhere. By the way, as you can tell, when it comes to sound effects here on the show, we spare every expense.
I'm going to put Charlie in charge of the
Oh,
effects.
There's so many
yeah,
buttons, guys.
yeah.
This is just
Well, you really
oh
can't.
great. The first one I get is a
You really can't go right on that. So whatever you punch.
Yeah, they're all wrong.
In any case, the Casa Fuente cigars are coming in 25-count boxes, and they come in 10 sizes, including 3 in a natural Ecuadorian wrapper, and they are going to be allocated, since there's only so many of them, but they're coming in place of the pinks, and then the pinks will arrive when they arrive. So, and finally, Drew Estate's 2021 limited edition Undercrown Dojo Dogma Sun-Grown and the Undercrown Dojo Dogma Maduro are now shipping to participating Drew Diplomat retailers nationwide. These two Dogma editions debuted in early May at Drew Estate's Freestyle Live Special Edition event. And it's a Mexican San Andres wrapper, Connecticut stalk cut and stalk cured Habano binder, and Nicaraguan and Brazilian filler leaves. You've had some of the Dojo Dogma cigars before, right? From Underground. That's good stuff.
I like Undercrown just generally as a line.
Boy,
They
you're
make great
not
stuff.
You're not kidding about that. They do great stuff. So those are some things to watch for at a cigar retailer near you. And of course, we talked about coming up with cigars designed to pair with beers. I'm going to say that if you've got some Garrison Brothers, any of these bottles, in your bar at home, you almost can't go wrong with cigars with these whiskeys. They're just extremely tobacco friendly.
So the single barrel that we just had makes me really want to smoke a pipe with it, though.
You did mention that,
like a big aromatic. I smoked the Accountant that's available at the Briar Shop, but there's a lot of aromatics like that. That buttered rum, I think that I got for you.
That's good. Yeah, you got.
Yeah,
that for
those.
me.
I think any of those would go well with this. It's a very bold whiskey with a bold front end to the palate, which I think is what you need when you smoke a pipe, especially because that pipe smoke is almost always in the front end of the palate on the aromatic ones, and I think that would stand up really nice and blend very well with it.
I think so, but I think you could also, I mean, that would be wonderful with a good medium-bodied cigar as well.
True.
I think there's something about. And I wonder if it's the mouthfeel, the viscosity.
I was about to say it's the viscosity and that oiliness that I think that really is.
Makes it feel like it would be so well paired. We have an event. We're hoping to do another one of these next year. We kind of got derailed by COVID.
Yeah.
We have an event that we do that was based on a thing that Ian does at home when he's having a cigar and wants to have some whiskey. And why don't you explain to Charlie how the whiskey sniff
So
works?
I chatting on the phone with my brother, because we spend a lot of time on the phone. He lives in Arizona, and we'll just hang out while we're doing stuff. I have a little Bluetooth earpiece, so I can do stuff with my hand, whatever. So if I'm working around, goofing around the house, we'll just be talking on the phone, and it looks like I'm talking to myself, which is okay. But what I started doing is I'd go outside and I'd light up a cigar, and I'd get, past the initial light to about an inch into the cigar, 3/4 of an inch to an inch. So you really get the flavor in your palate. And then I'll go inside and I just pop the bottle.
Take a shot.
And just put it to my nose. And you'll find that because you have that
Because you have
cigar
the cigar
flavor
in
in
your
your
palate,
palate,
yeah.
you'll be able to tell just by nosing your whiskey which ones are going to go with it really well. So we called it the whiskey sniff. That's what we started calling it.
And
I told him about it one time.
And I said, that's an event. And we've done 2 of them so far, about a year apart. And we got everyone together on a big open patio. We had all these different whiskey vendors available and a few other spirits, some rums and tequilas as well. And people would buy a ticket. And when they came in with their ticket, they'd be handed a nice little bag of cigars, a little swag bag with goodies and cigars. And you light up the cigar you want to smoke. And then you go around to the tables and take
and
your
they give
opportunity
you free smells.
and
samples
free
afterwards.
free smells and free drinks too, which is a pretty cool thing. So
It was a lot of
So
fun.
we,
That is cool.
I'm just officially going to say you don't have to commit, but we do this again. We have to have you guys there because
We'd love it.
Because
That
this
sounds
is
like a
such
blast.
a wonderful cigar friendly whiskey, and I've already snuck a drink of this. What is this?
So I tell you what, this is the nose on this one just puts a smile on my face. It's
It really does.
yeah.
It's almost like candy.
exactly.
It's got like a gingerbread crossed with a candy cane almost.
So this sucker that we've got now is 121.8 proof, and it's another
wonder.
single barrel. And this is one that we use rainwater to proof down the bourbon once we.
That's so cool.
Yeah, there's no herbicides or pesticides in rainwater, so it's going to change the flavor of what we're after the least, right? So that's what every barn we have out there has rainwater catchment on it, and that's primarily what a ranch functions on, other than
I'd like to propose a catchphrase. Your water is cloud filtered.
cloud filter.
Oh, I like it.
In
Filtered
bourbon
the-
with angel share and devil's cut
And
cloud
cloud-filtered
filtered
water.
it fits. It
filtered
fits.
in the clouds. It's very high tech. It's very high tech, right? Very high tech and nature friendly at the same time.
I'll just put it out there.
This is absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
just
you.
got
Oh my
its
gosh,
own
buttery.
It's just got its own thing going. Buttery, almost some caramel.
So
Am I getting
you said
caramel?
120,
This would be 121.8.
121.8 proof. This doesn't, especially on the initial front part of the palate, does not come across
You'd never
hot.
know this one, yeah.
You take a sip and then you finish your sip and you swallow it and it's still not hot, and then you get this beautiful whiskey hug that comes up behind you like a slightly too intimate lover and just hangs around.
Slightly too intimate. Like a kid brother you can't shake. I'm aware of those.
Yeah.
It's awkward.
The
It's
first
the
one
whiskey
we had
hug.
was 94 proof, and I wanted to put ice on it. This one I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to put any ice on. This has
Right.
got just such a rich, right up front, buttery.
How can I
I'm gonna
say
get
this?
popcorn out of it.
How can I say this and not sound like an idiot? It is powerful and delicate at the same time. Does that
It's
make any
just
sense?
gentle on the
100%.
side. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's got a little kick to it, but it's also very, very, very delicate.
This is dangerous because normally if we've got a high proof bourbon, I can pour a half an ounce and just touch my tongue and I'm fine all afternoon. I can just touch on it.
Right.
This one, I could drink. You know, I could just drink it like a 94 proof bourbon, and it would catch up to you.
Yeah, it's a little
it's
different,
not,
right?
Yeah. Again, kind of like that slightly too intimate lover. Is that what you said? How did you put it? How you put it was perfect. So, wow.
That's going to have to be one of those things that we pull out of the show and just do as its own.
Just do its own thing. Absolutely. Well, this is really terrific. So let's talk Texas whiskey. You guys, I would put as maybe the distillery that has sort of led the charge when it comes to Texas whiskey. You've been doing this for a little while now, and you really have, more than anything else, I think you have given the Texas whiskey scene a great deal of credibility. The awards that you've been able to win, and the way that people who are not in Texas write about your whiskey and review your whiskey has really, I feel like you guys have gone a long way towards putting Texas whiskey on the map. I mean, now we've got Tennessee whiskey, we got Kentucky
There's a
whiskey.
song about that. We need a Texas whiskey song.
I'm sure there is a Texas whiskey song.
There's half a dozen now.
It just may not be
We
as
have
good
a
as
quick
that
question
one.
by Bruce Stark. Bruce Stark's one of our favorite listeners. He always comments on the posts and everything like that. He's wondering, is Garrison Brothers only available in Texas?
Negative. We're sold in 40 states, give or take now. We're the number one selling, which just cracks me up because I feel like yesterday it was plastic buckets and bow doors. But we're the number one selling whiskey in the entire country over $70. So for the finest,
kidding,
most
that's-
expensive whiskeys available in the
Wow.
country.
That's huge.
Isn't that insane? And still somehow I lose money. I don't get it.
I love that. So you're available at how many states did you say?
40 plus.
40
you know,
plus, okay.
there's some control state questions, so we argue about that. But 34 to 42 is the standard
with
answer.
that money thing, if you're anything like me, you never actually have money. You're just loosely trying to like shuffle it from one place to
it's
another.
a laundering process. Yeah,
And
all
somehow
I
it's
do
slipping
is
through your
drink
fingers
bourbon.
the whole time you're doing
Yeah,
that.
so I don't want anything to change. I have no objective to finish this. That would be awful. You know, worst thing that could happen.
So-
but Texas whiskey,
Yeah.
to get to your point, we were the first ones to ever legally, which is the key word, make whiskey in the state of Texas. And that was, we know that because it took us about 3 years of groveling with the legislature to get the laws changed. So we are Texas' first legal whiskey. But what's freaking great about Texas is everybody here wants to beat the other guy. And so now I want to say there's 160 distilleries in Texas.
Wow.
And a lot of those are making whiskey, you know, and some of them are packaging whiskey, but there's a lot of them
That are making whiskey.
it.
Yeah.
And our climate and what happens down here, Texas is a big place. So West Texas whiskey to East Texas whiskey would
Might
be
as well be from another country.
it's literally Kentucky to Texas. It's that different. But there's little pockets of Texas making bourbons that I think are magic. And I think we're getting such a rapid education because of our climate that I think in another 10 years, I think that the world will view really high quality bourbons and whiskeys from Texas. I think that mass production will come from elsewhere, but I think the finest whiskeys in the world 10, 20, 30 years from now is just going to be a statement. American whiskey, Texas.
You also get the backup of people that live in Texas, because you know what people that live in Texas love? Things from Texas.
Yeah, it's 100% true. No, it's 100% true. There
It
is
is.
no other state that has
That
this sense of self.
State loyalty. Yeah.
The way that Texas does. But what has amazed me about Texas whiskey has actually just been the quality of it. So I'll give you a perfect example. Texas wine. There's some good Texas wine coming out, but Texas wine has not risen to the place where it has the same level of quality and respect and notoriety as, say, California wines. I'm not saying they're not good. There's some great ones, but you have to look a little harder for them. Whereas with Texas whiskey, it feels like there's been so many great ones that have been coming out, and with you guys leading the charge, that it has really stood up and said, you know, even before we get to 10, 20 years from now, hey, we are an absolute contender with Kentucky and Tennessee. And I feel like that's that has happened so quickly.
The guys in Kentucky were so gracious to us when we started. I mean, they would teach us stuff. The still that we started with was one of Elmer T. Lee's old Blanton stills.
No kidding, really? That's so cool.
So everybody in Kentucky encouraged us. It's not what anybody thought. First of all, I've got maybe 35,000 barrels aging out there. This year, Kentucky will do 2.5 million barrels. There's not a company going, oh no, those Garrison brothers are coming on the scene. They're patting us on the head and saying, dude, what you're doing is raising the water for everybody. It's raising all the boats.
And it's that way with other Texas distilleries,
and that's
too,
exactly
isn't it?
our feeling is we need to build this brand. These distilleries are in ag areas.
Right.
They're creating jobs in places where people used to have to move from.
If Balcones or Old Humble Distilling or
Absolutely.
someone like that does something that gets more attention brought to Texas whiskey, they release something that's really good. In the long run, that's helpful to you guys, right?
Couldn't be happier for them. We really are close.
We've always felt like the cigar industry was that way a little bit. There is some competition, but for the most part, they really understand that a rising tide lifts all ships. And
breweries and distilleries seem to you guys get together. I asked my buddy over at Eureka Heights, Joel, one time. I was like, is there a secret meeting you guys have with all the different distilleries? And what's funny is he said there kind of is. Every once in a while, we all get together and we just join up at one of the breweries.
That's so cool.
All of us just hang out and stuff like that. It's absolutely fantastic. I think that's one of the most amazing things.
You know, what would be awesome is if we could somehow sneak into one of those and just do a live show. Just turn the mics on and let them go.
Those meetings are a
amazing.
blast until somebody comes in that's trying to create a marketing brand.
Yeah.
And we turn into a pack of dogs. It's pretty. It gets ugly fast.
Well, you know what it makes me think of is when we did the 100th episode.
Yeah.
And we had so many different spirits people. When we did the 100th episode of the show, and we didn't do this for 200 because it was in the middle of COVID, but when we did the 100th episode of the show, we invited everyone who'd ever been on the show to come. And of course, not everybody could make it. But there were so many people. Oh. Everybody brought bottles. Everybody brought cigars.
There were whiskeys.
We were set up at this long table on this outside patio of the building where I live downtown, and the show went for 4 hours.
That's a blast.
And it was, it really was.
So much fun.
By the time we got to the last hour, I'm not sure how interesting it was. We had Jeremiah.
We were all blithering idiots by that point.
And we had Jeremiah and your buddy Mark talking about how to drain lines for draft beer in a
cocktails
in a
and
restaurant.
stuff.
I'm not sure how on point that was, but boy, was that a fun show to do. And that's kind of what the brewery meetings or the distillery meetings sound like they would be, There's something called the Texas Distillery Trail and Texas Certified. Look it up. It's pretty dang neat. These are guys that are actually growing their grain, making their own distillate, and you can. It's where the Kentucky Bourbon Trail was 200 years ago. It's cool. It's really fun. Can I see the bottle?
Yeah, man.
Because this is just fantastic. I just really want to show this to the camera too.
Color of it's a blast.
I don't know, Ian. I guess I could show it.
I can't see on mine.
This
I don't have
camera. Here, I tell you what. I'll flip
I don't have
that
the visual.
over,
There we go.
and you can maybe show that to the camera because that is just. I just want people to know where that beautiful.
Look at that.
What that beautiful bottle of whiskey looks like, and by beautiful I
so
mean.
So most of these have the silver star on it, right?
Yep.
But you have one over here with the black top.
So that's the new package. The little strap and the belt and all that's our new look.
Man, the star is even more engaging on that.
Speaking of interesting packaging, I mentioned this earlier in the show. This is our next beer, Ian, and this is the one where it looks like it's a.
Oh man!
It looks like
Satin steel.
It looks like it's a logo for an '80s hairband, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, even the name, Satin Steel.
That is what was that band, Nelson?
Yeah,
that's remember? Totally like Nelson
or Wild Stallions. San Dimas High School football rules. All right, so let's try. This is an IPA, so I don't know how this is going to pair up with the whiskey. We'll just have to see, whether this works or not. But
IPAs can be awkward with whiskey.
Yeah, that's normally where I go.
Although here's a weird one. Most well-balanced IPAs, if you back it with a rye.
Oh, with a rye,
actually
you're 100%
pretty
right.
darn
I can
good.
see that
Because the spiciness of the rye works with the IPA. and it works actually pretty darn well.
Yeah.
No, you're.
That was an
100%
accident
right.
I happened across one day.
So Ian's pouring and we're passing. This
Yes.
is when you sit in that seat.
Have I gotten enough yet? How many do we have?
2 more. Three more. One. Yeah, 3 more.
You
We
got
got 1, 2.
Did you get one already?
3. And he's got one. So 1 more and then you. All right.
I think
So,
this is me.
Yeah,
Fortunately, we have a nice tall can here. So Satin Seal,
one?
everybody got one? Did you get one?
Oh, I'm not drinking.
You're not drinking. Okay.
Oh.
I understand. So, Ian, tell us what the can tells us about this IPA.
It says,
Ooh.
according to the Surgeon General, women should not drink alcoholic beverages during pregnancy. because
Okay,
of the
that's
risk-
good to know. Yes.
Oh, you mean the other words?
The other words.
That's why I'm
yes.
not drinking.
You heard it here first.
Congratulations.
On Smoking and Toasting. Yeah,
Awesome.
Congratulations. So,
Featuring Mosaic and Enigma hops. Says, create a world you love. Satin Steel GIPA, which is double IPA. TrimTab Brewing from Alabama. Pint Night Fever. Yeah, this is totally like
yeah, this is totally.
totally going for the disco fever thing. Smooth taste, heavy hop, 16 ounces of groove. It says.
Love it.
And it's coming in at 9% party/volume.
So it's very interesting that you say, you talked about groove, and I'm thinking about the logo. I immediately
good.
thought hairband, but it also is kind of like a 70s disco looking looking logo as well, like a roller boogie type of thing, right? Yeah, this on the nose is all like pineapple and citrus. Very
Yeah, a lot of pineapple. You're right.
very intense sort of a nose for a beer. And what hops did you say it was? It was Mosaic and
Mosaic and Enigma.
the Mosaic is a very citrusy hop, not quite as much as Citra, but they've got a real
I'm assuming
citrusy vibe
Enigma
going.
hops came from Star Trek because they always had some kind of enigma.
Some kind of
or
an enigma.
anomaly.
Yeah, anomaly. Yeah, lots of
They
anomalies.
need an anomaly hops too. so-
Anomaly. There is an anomaly brewing.
That's true. True anomaly.
Yeah, true anomaly. Yep.
But it doesn't finish as citrusy. It's kind of a.
It's
No,
it
you're right. It
finishes
finishes very, very crisp.
I was going to say tang.
Tang,
It
as
finishes
in,
like
as in,
almost
Tang.
like a cider.
as in what the astronauts drink. Tang. Do astronauts really drink Tang? Is that a thing, or is that just a
Was that just a
marketing
marketing
line?
ploy?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
Smartest.
here's the deal. Back in the early 80s and late 70s, they would never have used a marketing ploy that wasn't 100% true. Mm-hmm. Nor would they today.
No, never
no.
today. Never,
No.
never today. I kind of dig
Small
this.
batch.
I kind of dig this.
There it is.
What do you think, Ian? Do you like this, or is the Tang?
I'm on the fence about
the
it.
Tang
It's,
off-putting for you?
It leaves kind of a weird, sticky sweet, like right up in the front of the palate that I'm not really jiving with.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's kind of a artificial fruitiness to it at the end.
That's the Tang you're talking about.
Yes,
Because
that-
Tang always had that artificial sweetener vibe to it, right?
Yeah, there's just something about this. Here's the thing. My initial couple sips I liked better than my subsequent sips after
Interesting. So it
And to me now it's getting a little bit sweet and cloying.
did the opposite of growing on you. Yeah.
My nose was
like
the
a
favorite part.
Uh,
barnacle.
The nose
nose
was your
was my
favorite,
favorite part of it,
Yeah,
yeah.
the
The
nose,
nose
is
is
just
good.
nose is just
It's
all
interesting.
pineapple.
Color
But
is
there's a-
very enticing to me.
Yeah,
There's an
Looks
underlying
delicious.
malt on the nose too that I was hoping I could taste, but I don't.
but you don't
taste
quite
it.
pull out of there. Yeah, well, very interesting. Well, I don't know how it will go with the whiskey because I already drank mine.
We've got more.
So,
Dang.
yeah, I tell you what, so we're gonna come back though and taste.
He wants more of the last
Is this our last one?
This is
This would be the Guadalupe. Yes.
Okay,
this
so
is
we
the
want
one.
to hold on to that for the final segment, though. So let's take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to do drinking news, and we'll try the Guadalupe, which I'm super excited to find out about because this is what's new, right?
It is.
And is this already out at retail, or is it coming?
It's out, and it may
It's
have already
gone.
blown right through.
It's out and it's gone. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So this is going to be a Chris Hart sort of a tasting. It's like we're gonna tell you how great it is, but sorry, you can't get it anywhere.
Next year. Yeah.
Nothing
Well,
to
next
see
year. Okay,
here.
so there's promise.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, so we'll take a break, and we will be right back. You've got Smoking and Toasting show number 255, and no one has stepped in to stop us.
Charlie, I'm sorry. I accidentally spilled some more of that last one.
Did you? Is your glass out?
Welcome back, my friends. It is Smokin' and Toastin'. This is the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com because...
Cigars.
Yes, sir. We have Charlie Garrison and Lino from Garrison Brothers Whiskey in the house, and we're going to be tasting something I'm super excited about called Guadalupe here momentarily. But first, Charlie, it's really hard for us to explain to guests who haven't been on the show before the significance of this next segment, because against every odd and every bit of decorum or good taste, it has actually become one of the most popular segments on our show. It's a little something we call Drinking News.
Drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. Drinking news. Drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. A Florida man with one arm said he had a gator for a pet. When asked about his absent arm, he said,
I had to take my gator to the vet.
Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all. And just a reminder and explanation here: the drinking news is sometimes, but not always, a story about drinking. But it is always a story that's probably best heard if you have been drinking.
Oh, yeah.
And always told while drinking?
And yeah, generally speaking,
Also,
by me, yes.
I think about 70% of the time starts with the phrase, a Florida man.
It does. but it's going to be a variant.
Not always.
It's going to be a variant of that today because an Indiana man, which, let's face it, that's just about as bad.
Yeah.
My ex-wife lives in Indiana. It's not the smartest state in the union. I'm just saying. An Indiana man is facing charges after a hit-and-run accident last week. By the way, we do our best to try to ensure that all these stories are actually real. Mm-hmm. They're not from The Onion. So they've at least appeared in something that pretends to be a legitimate
we
publication.
researched that fact by at least looking at the name of it.
Extensively.
That's exactly right. Hey, it's better. Hey, Congress passes bills they don't even read, so you know what I'm saying?
We're one step above Congress.
And climbing. And the Indiana man is facing charges after a hit-and-run accident last week. Authorities say that officers were called to the scene in Evansville, Indiana, at Weinbach and Maxwell Streets around 10:30 a.m. on the 5th, where an affidavit states that one Sean Bitter hit another vehicle and then left the scene. Officials say that
Not so cool.
Bitter started to flee, but stopped shortly after the accident because of the damage that had been done to his vehicle. And it was at that point that officers secured him and put him into handcuffs. They say that he was unsteady on his feet, had slurred speech, bloodshot eyes, and they could smell alcohol in his breath. Police say that Bitter knew he was involved in the accident, but he told officers that the reason he didn't stay was that he needed to go and get more whiskey.
Okay. So at least he has a goal in mind.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure what. So what's the story?
According to an affidavit, Bitter admitted to drinking Monday night and Tuesday morning before the accident. However, officials say that he refused sobriety tests, as if, right? So just a little tip for you kids.
I love that he goes, look, I needed to go get more whiskey. But no, I'm not doing your sobriety.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have standards.
Just a little tip for you kids. If you're ever involved in an accident, telling the officers that you were leaving to get more whiskey is probably not your best line of defense. I'm just saying. I'm sure that Mr. Bitter will be looking for an attorney, although I'm not sure who would be, willingly taking that case. I think Rudy Giuliani might be available, so there's that. And that, my friends, is your
Drinking news. Drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all. So we always try to find some weird news story. And the funny thing is, you can always find Florida man stories and stuff, but they aren't always as humorous as you want them to be. So that's always the challenge every week.
They can get pretty dark, right?
Yeah, they absolutely can. So my challenge every week is to find a story that I think will make Ian laugh. If I can make Ian laugh, I feel like it's been a successful drinking news.
Dude, that first one
today
we
was
did,
kind of like
when I debuted the drinking news song, the one that you had on that day.
Was that the one where the pilot flew the
No,
airplane.
that was
in
the guy
shape
with
of
the
a
penis growing out of his arm.
That was the best one ever.
Oh.
Wait,
What?
yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wait, what?
longest drinking news story ever because I couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah. So that's the gold standard of drinking news stories right there. They don't always live up to that, but somehow people keep coming back for drinking news. So it is what it is. So we talked Texas whiskey. Let's talk Garrison Brothers a little bit. How did you guys fare during the time when bars were closed? We know drinking was up during the pandemic, but we also know that bars were closed, and particularly I think for a smaller distillery, a craft distillery, that's gotta have really hurt in terms of sales because a lot of your pours are getting made in those bars and things. So the first question is, how'd you guys handle it? And second question is, are you seeing it come back? Because we're hearing conflicting things about how the whole bar industry is doing at this point.
So I remember it was March 14th, March 17th. Sat down, our management team sat down and went, we're screwed. What do you do? The whole country is shutting down. And so we figured out every single way we possibly could cut money without cutting employees, because our family this is our family. There's 67 families involved, and we know each other really well. Now, this is personal.
Just so you know, there are other ways to go about that, because I worked for Clear Channel Communications many times, and their approach is
Notice he said many times.
immediately cut employees. Yeah. I was fired by Clear Channel 3 times. I'm not making that up. I always like to say
Cruz.
I'm not smart.
Fire hot.
I'm not smart, but I learn eventually. Yeah.
I
but
get fired a
no,
lot.
you're right. The big companies, that's the first thing they do.
Yeah, we took the other extreme. It was just panic
that
and
so
okay,
cool.
what do we do to keep our team? Because they got us here. So
Right.
anyway, that was step one. 3 months later, we went, oh my God, people are buying a lot of bourbon. They couldn't go to their bars and restaurants.
So they were going
and
to
drink.
Specs and Total Wine.
They went out and said, I'm going to take all the money. We make a stupidly expensive bourbon. This stuff isn't cheap.
Right.
The way we make it makes it one of the most expensive bourbons made in the world. I'm absolutely blunt about it. But everybody said, well, heck, I'm going to spend $50 at a bar. I'm going to go get a really good bourbon. And our business went berserk.
That is awesome, though.
It was crazy.
Really is.
It really was. It was all out, the retailers. But then I was joking earlier about my brother always being 5-8 years out. Dan has become kind and charitable about 5 years ahead of when we are profitable, right? Which makes a complicated charity to build, right?
It does, yeah.
So what he did is he started taking Laguna Madre and all the events and all the things we did, our Balmorhea, and he started using it as a fundraiser. And it was pretty magical because he raised a lot of money.
Was it raising money for bar and restaurant employees?
We
and
have
people who
two
are out of
groups
work?
we really focus. Three. We focus on open spaces. Any redneckism. If there's a open space or something like that, we're all about it. The military is a big deal to us. And then lastly was the guys that served our bourbon. That's the third leg of that stool. And so Dan would run around, and he raised a lot of money. I can't remember, hundreds of thousands of dollars, selling Garrison Brothers. And he would write checks and hand them directly to bartenders and say, hey, man, I hope this pays your rent for a month. And those guys, as things come back, so we're talking about coming back now,
Those
oh my
guys
gosh.
remember who took care of them, right?
They are
I bet you have some brand
awesome.
loyalty.
Oh, I cry all the time. I hear a story a day that brings me to tears about
Awesome.
somebody. It's just
Awesome.
so cool. So it's coming back. What we're reading is what we're reading, but go check out your bar. It's coming back, guys.
I was so excited when Reserve 101 opened up because it's right around the corner from my house, and I just didn't know if they were going to make it. It was, and it's not someplace I go all the time. Although I go there every once in a while. But I was just every time I would walk or drive by them during the middle of the pandemic, I thought, I don't know if they're going to make I don't know if they'll be able to open again. And it was just such a cool little downtown place. Ian and I met there for drinks before, and just when I saw them open back up, it was just such a happy feeling, you know.
I think that Reserve 101 was the first private barrel we ever sold.
No kidding.
Nice.
How
those guys
cool
are
is
awesome.
that? How cool is that? Yeah, they're very cool. They're super friendly, and their whiskey selection is pretty unparalleled. They know what they're doing. Yeah. All right, so talk to me about the Guadalupe.
Can I say something about this?
Yes, you may.
You have packaged liquid chocolate in the most wonderful and delicious way.
I like this.
I don't think I have anything left to say. Thanks, guys.
Like, holy Toledo.
Yeah. Thank you.
Batman.
Smoking and toasting. We'll see you next week.
Wow.
Yeah, that is liquid chocolate, isn't it? It's almost like a little bit of a tingly sensation that you get when you drink that.
There's a kiss of floral on the aftertaste. It's incredibly interesting too that I can't really pin down. And then so you have this theme going through everything that we've tried is this mineral water deliciousness too, and I love the mineral water flavor.
Right,
in a lot
the
of
minerality in all
when you
of
get
these
that,
expressions.
and it's really really nice going through.
So a 2-second segue on the mineral water, which is just kind of fun, is that's what started Garrison Brothers.
It's cloud filtered.
It was well, no, that's our water we use for proofing.
Oh, okay.
When we're fermenting, we use our limestone
mineral water,
water, and Texas limestone is totally different than Kentucky.
Right, and this is another reason that the
minerality.
Texas whiskey scene is as quickly good as it is because of the limestone
Yeah,
water.
parts of Texas
particularly
are
in
on
central
limestone.
Texas, right?
Yeah. So the hill country, that whole area is limestone, and it's absolutely 180 degrees different than Kentucky's. It's much younger. In Kentucky, when water runs through their limestone, all the minerals come out of the water and into the rock, right? It's old, it's hard, it filters really well. Limestone in the hill country, water runs through it, minerals come out of the water, out of the rock into our water. And so when we're fermenting, I get a completely 180 degree different beer, distiller's beer, than Kentucky gets.
So if you were to take the same ingredients you're using, but take them to Kentucky and use Kentucky water.
Totally different
night
bourbon.
and day, right?
Totally different bourbon.
Night and day.
Yeah, we don't know what it would be, but it would be totally different.
It'd be an interesting experiment. Maybe you should hook up with a distillery in Kentucky.
We might
and
have some barrels shipped around here and there.
Do a little something with them.
Not
and they can
legally.
do a little
I mean,
something
I'm sorry, not legally. Did I say that?
I don't have two more, so we'll have to figure something out.
Can I borrow just a couple of your little tiny glasses?
Yeah, we'll have to figure something out.
So Guadalupe, the one we're drinking now, is the small batch. Again, everything starts
small batch, right.
And then Donna Scott brought in a bunch of Portuguese barrels that he's finishing it in. So it spends at least 2 more years in port barrels.
So
and see that
I'm just amazed because everything we're trying today, you're telling me, starts as the same
That's all we
juice,
mix, small
the
batch.
same
All
distillate.
the same distillate?
Yeah, all he
Yeah.
looks for is how to highlight the characteristics that he's getting from wood. That is 100% of what he wakes up and worries about every day.
He's not listening today or watching the show, is he?
I put my phone down because I knew that he and my brother and everybody else would send a bunch of offensive texts that would keep me distracted.
That's what I was going to say. Hopefully he's not listening because I was going to say you probably don't pay him enough.
He, yeah, we don't pay any of us enough, but we get a lot of liquor.
Hey, don't give Adam any ideas.
Yeah, I know. it's absolutely true. No, but seriously, what he is able to do with this same distillate and the way that he's able to make so many different expressions that are distinctly different from each other and yet come from the same it's very impressive.
This one is so good I want to wear it.
You guys, I hope your contracts all have key man clauses and he's the key man.
The catch is he lives in High Texas.
Yeah?
There's nowhere you can go from High Texas that's better. High Texas
So
is
you
heaven.
guys are way out in the country. High Texas.
We're an hour and a
is
half
out
outside of Austin, yeah.
in the country.
Out in
And
Wazoo County.
You're far enough out of Austin that you don't have to deal with that crazy Austin traffic.
And
right?
Fredericksburg is the next biggest city, right? And it's not a big city.
Yeah, that's our city though. Yeah, High has one building. It's a post office, liquor store.
We're gonna come visit you real soon. Me and my wife are gonna come visit you within the next month. We're gonna be hitting you up and coming out there because holy cow,
it's a beautiful place, and so that's what I rely on. Is please
you don't have
leave
to
me, because where are
entertain
you
me.
gonna go?
Just show me where the whiskey is and let me go.
Have you followed Donis with that drill?
That's right.
I got my own drill.
Yeah. Ian would be happy to follow along behind him with an extension cord. Just kind of like holding the bride's train on the dress during a wedding. Yeah, it'd be a similar thing. Ian, I just tasted this beer, getting a little ahead of myself. This is Anderson Valley Brewing Company's Salted Caramel Porter, and all I have to say is, wow.
This lives right where you got those little square caramels in the sticky plastic that you pull each
that your
end
grandma
and
used to have. Yeah,
and then they get stuck to your teeth, and you're still tasting it like an hour and a half later, but it's good. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know exactly where you are with it.
Oh,
my mom has a bucket of these things sitting next to her refrigerator.
I've never even seen those outside of like old people's
houses. Yeah,
dishes.
Yeah,
I'm not calling my mom old.
I
Noted.
I grew up in a small town. I used to get them sometimes at Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
They'd get dropped into the
I had a
bag.
paper route when I was really young, and I had this lady that used to leave out those caramels and saltwater taffy
Saltwater
that I'm
taffy.
convinced was actually made in the 50s.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
Because I don't know if they've made saltwater taffy since. They're just trying to get rid of the excess.
When you take a bite of a saltwater taffy and it cracks, that's how you know it's been around for a little while, right? Have you tried going back to the whiskey perchance after you had a sip of this beer?
My whiskey is broken.
We can fix it.
I have a similar problem.
This leads to a complication we call drangry.
I thought this was like a lazy Susan. You guys had this thing so figured out.
Are you familiar with drangry?
Yeah.
It ties everything together.
You are missing out.
Drangry is, when you run out of a drink and then nothing is there to keep your glass from collapsing in your hand and it turns into a fist.
Yeah. And that's drangry.
I came up with this concept at one point in time in New Orleans wandering around.
I
know that's surprising, right?
I've come up with a lot of concepts in New Orleans, I can tell you. Very few of them were
hanging out with my friend Leroy.
Were as good as drangry. Speaking of the Lazy Susan, you actually have missed ordinarily the star of our show. Although with this many people in the studio, it was difficult to bring him out this week. But the star of our show is a little Lazy Susan that's about the size of a 45 RPM record, and we call it Mr. Twirlygig. And what we generally do is we'll take the bottle and set it on Mr. Twirlygig and have it do a sort of a what do you call it, a home shopping network sort of a twirl.
So usually, like, we have 4 people in the studio right now. Usually, if we don't have guests, we have me and him, and then we have one of our cameras will just be a spare that is dedicated to Mr. Twirlygig.
Gotcha.
And whatever we place upon him. So I just want to say these two liquids were born to be together, in my mind.
Yeah, they kind of form like Voltron, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Was that a Star Wars reference?
Transformers.
Transformers, yeah.
No,
Sorry.
actually, it predates Transformers.
So where did it come from?
Probably just around the time. So Voltron was the one that had the 5 lions that came together into the giant robot.
Nothing. I got nothing.
You're just outside the generation.
I was 5 years too soon.
Yeah, you're just outside the generation.
Yeah.
I'm finding that happening more and more and more.
Yeah, but don't feel bad. I'm finding that.
I mean, I'm approaching 50. I'm outside of a lot of those generations.
Yeah, I was just about to say I'm finding that I'm outside of a whole bunch of stuff these days.
I had to ask a second grader what prizes to get for my students so that they'd be excited about playing guitar. So
stop it. You teach guitar?
Yeah.
And you smoke cigars and drink booze and talk about it.
Truly,
on the
he's
radio?
one of the coolest guys in the world.
Yeah. What I do.
How? Yeah.
I build guitars too.
He's one of the coolest guys in the world.
That's what. And your wife's a badass. Good
Yeah,
for
she's
you.
pretty
You've done just fine for yourself, my friend.
He's done all right. Tell me about what this Guadalupe costs retail. If I want to bottle this,
Elena,
and I know I
anything for me?
can't
Well, this is
find
the
a
one you
bottle,
can't
right?
get it.
Because this is the one that's
It's
sold
out there, but
it's probably
it's
sold
the
out.
Dusty Bottle things. It's going to be a chase.
And so, will this be coming out again next year? And if so, around what time?
Yes and yes. Would we probably July? I want to say for Guadalupe.
Okay, so that's when to look for it.
Yeah, and it'll come back out. We just don't make a lot of it. You know, when we're aging stuff in port barrels, what we're doing now, we started 5 years ago. So it's we're not in any rush. You know, we want to grow, but we like to grow with stuff we're proud of.
And
so.
Lena, what's a bottle of that going to be like at retail price wise?
About $130.
$130, and worth every penny. Let me
This
tell
is
you.
amazing.
Thank you, man.
Because to me, so now you're in at 130. You're in the price range of some of my absolute favorite spirits. I generally won't go out and spend $200
Sure.
on something.
Sure.
I kind of have to draw the line somewhere. But now you're in the you're in the vicinity of Jose Cuervo Reserva de la Familia Extra Añejo Tequila, which is the only Cuervo product that I really like, but it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You're in the neighborhood of the Flor de Caña
25
rum, and this is every bit as good as it. I mean, it really is. That it is not overpriced, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, we appreciate
even
it.
though it's not inexpensive, it's not overpriced.
Yeah, we think we're very fair on the price. We the way that we make it makes it really expensive to make. But if we ever tried, everything that my brother and Donis have ever done is a slight bit more elegant than the last one.
You
And
got
so
that
it's
right.
always going to be, that's where we're headed. We're not headed down to a lower priced product. I don't want to make that.
Right.
Just a quick point. You also put in here, quite specifically, food grade #1 white corn.
Yep.
A lot of corn is not food grade. As a matter of fact, I think
That's
the
used
bulk
in
of
whiskey?
corn
Yep.
that is made and harvested is either used
feed
in
grade,
food
right?
Yeah, it's cattle
industry
grade,
for something
yeah.
like that, or feed grade or things like that, but not food grade. It's not what you buy in a can at the grocery store or pick up frozen. That's a very small percentage of corn that is grown in the wild, so to speak.
And I've actually had some in cans from certain corn, canners that I would describe
That
as
are not
being
food
food
grade.
grade.
Yeah. No, if you walk into a Whole Foods and say, I need to buy your best corn,
the fact that you're
that's what
using
they're going to send to
food
you.
grain corn is
Yeah.
substantially more expensive.
Think of white corn. I mean, just the idea of
so
white
delicious.
corn. That's what we use, and everything about it. Dan day one said, "Look, I'm going to make the best bourbon in the world."
I mean, that is
and I got
many
my
times more
sarcastic little
expensive
look.
than-
Yeah, but I looked at him like, "You don't know how to make any bourbon. So what do you mean
So
you're going to
what-
make the best
you're gonna
bourbon in
make
the
the
world?"
best,
And that was his mindset. And he never
love it.
strayed. So yeah, the
love
corn
it.
we use is multiple times more expensive.
Yeah.
The fact we don't sour mash, it's a bunch of whiskey stuff, but we don't reuse our grains. We don't sour mash. The amount of distillate that we keep when we make our cuts, and this is for all you whiskey geeks out there, is half of what we could keep. We could cut our cuts in half tomorrow if we kept more of our distillate. That's just not something we're willing to do.
And it's great that during COVID, when you were looking to cut costs, that's also a place you didn't cut.
Yeah, we every time we've ever made bourbon, well, we've never made bourbon more affordably. That's just the way it is. It's just the way it'll always be.
There's a
totally
reason
get
this
it.
is priced at its price point, and you're still getting bang for the buck
Right.
on it.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
All right,
guys.
we got to take a break. We'll be back to close up the show and ask final questions. What a joy this has been with Garrison Brothers and Charlie Garrison and Lina. And, oh, my God, this Guadalupe. Oh, my God.
It's so good.
We will be right back. It's Smoking and Toasted.
Salute, guys.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. And this show has just been so much fun for me today. The Garrison Brothers has been just outstanding. We've had some very interesting beers, and you guys are fun to hang out with, I have to tell you.
I've had a ball.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just.
so-
I'm still thinking about you wake up every day, so you're my hero.
I have some questions for you after the show, by the way.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Very good. Should I know I have to go, but should you just keep going then?
And just FYI, it sounds like I have a job. But if you ever have a position opening up where you need someone of no discernible skills, don't look any further.
You need to be an executive. Yeah, that's what Dan and I bring to the table.
Or a senator or a congressman.
There's that.
That would work perfectly.
I can say a lot of things that mean nothing.
Absolutely perfectly. So guys, this whiskey, I mean, it's so easy when we're sitting here and enjoying these samples to kind of wax philosophical a little bit about where Texas whiskey is going. I think what you said earlier about 10 years from now, Texas whiskey is going to be thought of as the preeminent American whiskey. I don't know. I almost don't see how that can keep from happening. I mean, we've had some other great Texas whiskey companies on that have been every bit as impressive in their own ways, and you guys are still leading the charge, and it makes me proud to be.
Can
from
I just
Texas.
say Cowboy whiskey? Can I say Balmore and then this thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's a dog that's on a bone, and we know it. All the Texas guys that are making bourbon, or whiskeys, we know what we got. We sense what's 5-10 years out, and we're fired up.
Yeah, I can only imagine what it's going to be like when you read that somewhere by Jim Murray or somebody who writes
Called
that
it 10 years
Texas
ago.
is now the American whiskey leader, the American whiskey location. How much have you guys grown in the past few years? I mean, are you? Let me ask the question a different way. Are you able to keep up with the demand as your whiskeys continue to win awards and as you continue to be recognized for what you're doing?
We're super cautious. So yes, the answer is we're able to keep up. We grow intelligently. I'm not trying to open every door. So we're really particular about who we partner with and who we grow through. But we 3 years ago, we got the Big Johnson, which is our new still, which is a 2,000-gallon pot still. She runs 24/7.
Wow.
We're making a lot of bourbon.
Yeah.
So we've grown like a weed.
Your
every
whiskey
year.
goes from the Big Johnson into Elsie.
We've got Fat Man and Little Boy in the Big Johnson. We got the Copper Cowgirl was Mr. Lee's old Blanton still, and those are all out there just working their butts off 24/7 making bourbon.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Well, I
we
got
have
to
no
tell you,
couth is what we have.
and please,
You know what? There's a place in the world for things that aren't PC, and I'm there with you.
That's
okay.
Distillery.
I was just about to say, you said you have no couth, and I was just about to beg you, please don't go trying to get any. Please. What you do have, though, is our admiration and our thanks. A wonderful,
100%.
wonderful product, and we so appreciate you guys coming and sharing it with us today and letting us in on a little bit of the fun that is Garrison Brothers. It's available just all over the place. Obviously, we come from Texas. We're very proud of Texas, but the show is heard all over the place, so you guys should be able to find Garrison Brothers, and they can find you on the web at
GarrisonBros.com.
That shouldn't be too difficult.
And we've
to
got
find.
a way you can order right there, and we'll send you to your nearest liquor store. So.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you guys again for being on the show. It's been wonderful. Next week, Ian, we are out at Presidential Cigars in Spring, Texas.
Emperor's Cut.
With the guys from Emperor's Cut. Apparently, they have a new cigar that they are super excited about.
Great. I enjoyed the last time we had them on the show.
They were wonderful. We had
Cigars were
such a
nice.
good time.
They're great people. They were so fun to have. They're
very
such
fun to have.
positive people. Like
I know.
they exude positivity like the whole time. It's really nice.
And it's just a wonderful thing. So I'm super looking forward to that. And then coming up on the 28th, a show I've been trying to get together since we started Smoking and Toasting. I'm proud to announce that Charles Justice will be joining us, the cigar smoking astronaut.
Yay!
Yes, and his wife and my friend Dana Steele will be with us as well. Dana was a fixture on rock and roll radio.
If I could
in
find
Houston
my
for many
old
years.
Steelworker button,
Oh, dude,
from
if you
when
could
she
find
was
it, you
on-
totally have to
She
wear
was
it
on
for that
101,
show.
right?
Yeah, you totally have to wear it for that show. That would be
amazing.
That would be awesome. So a couple of great shows coming up. Thank you again so much.
Couldn't have
Charlie
more
and
fun.
Lena
This
for
is
being
just a
here.
blast. I'm not going anywhere.
All right,
we'll just
good.
stay here and sit here and talk for a couple hours.
You guys just hang out and drink. I have to go do a call. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Adam on the Wheels of Steel. Thank you, Tiffany, for drinking with us today.
Tiffany in the background.
Have a great week, my friends. And as we like to say on Smoking and Toasting, cheers, y'all.
Thanks. That was a lot of fun, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry.